Hello, and welcome back to Chaotic Insights, where the TV show isn't the only thing that is chaotic. So today we're talking about episode 5, aka Crash Course. So grab a snack, start your laundry, and we'll dive right in. Episode summary. So the A plot, of course, is Luke is chasing Sarah and Tom in the Riverlands, and after a successful scan mission, they jump into the river and the water messes up Tom's scan. Oh no! So instead of going back again first to Luke, he decides to scan the prankster Yakis. In the end, Tom gains empathy for Yakis, but he fails to get a scan. The B plot. Kaz goes up against Clay in the Battledrome. And Kaz uses Peyton's unexpected strategy and tries out his new Vile Driver scan. But Clay also has a Vile Driver scan. Ultimately, Kaz wins the match by destroying the Vile Driver and ditching it to survive, just like he did when he was scanning the battle gear, leaving Clay gooped. And what is this? We have a C plot, our first C plot, everybody. So Peyton and Christella spark a rivalry while rooting for opposite sides of this chaotic match. So that's kind of fun. We love a C plot, we really do. And so, analysis. This is the first time we get a C plot, and also the first time we get a reoccurring plot line. We do get a flashback to the other episode to recap the last episode with this nice white vignette to differentiate that this is a flashback and you should take it as such. But what we don't get is we don't get like a last time on chaotic to explain what happened last time. They just they just start the episode with the A plot and then we get to recap in this nice flashback. And I think the question is why, right? Like, why would you not do a last time on when you obviously need information from the last time on? Well, I think it's because it has the B plot, right? The establishing information also happened in the B plot of that distinct episode. So, like, is it a good idea having these overarching stories across the B plots and having unique A plots? We talked about that a little bit about how it's accessible for the viewer. If this is your first time watching a chaotic episode, you get a complete narrative in the A plot, but it's rewarding the people who stay with the B plots. And it certainly worked on me. Like, this is not the last episode this happens with either. So I think it's an interesting strategy for this kids' TV show to be more mature and to target a higher audience. Not a higher audience, but like a higher level thinking audience, like critically. Like instead of it being like a 7 to 10 TV show, or like I don't know what my TV show age ranges are. Instead of it being a like 4 to 6 TV show, it can be like a 7 to 10 or a 7 to 12. Like you can hit that kind of younger preteen demographic because there's more intricacy in the plot development and there's like more mature themes that kind of go over, that 7-year-old's head. But like just because they don't understand the nuance doesn't mean they're not having a good time watching Yakis be a prankster. You know what I mean? It's interesting. And well, the other thing is they can't do a last time on because it wasn't even the last time. The information was from 2 episodes ago. It was like this is information from episode 3 that we're revisiting in episode 5. And like they do this kind of time and again where they like plant these seeds of a storyline that they come back to later. My first instinct is like the Blight, which is a plotline that comes later, that it starts in the Flash animation and it ends after the animation switch, I'm pretty sure. But it's like these two separate episodes that are so far apart from each other, but they tell one unique story. And so I think that's kind of what's happening with this Vile Driver saga is that even though it's relegated to the B plot, it is still like prevalent. That's all I have to say. But here's a question, a plot hole, if you will. So Clay scans the Vile Driver. There's assumption made that Kaz when Kaz scanned it, the blasters were broken, right? And Kaz is like, well, let me wait until they're fixed. And so he waits until they're fixed, and then he scans it, and then he destroys it, right? And so Kaz makes the assumption that Clay must have scanned it before I did. Right, but Kaz, if he scanned it before you did, the blasters would be broken. And clearly the blasters of Clay's scan are not broken, right? So he would have to scan it after, right? And so this is like, is this a plot hole of if Clay scanned it before? But I think that's just Kaz's assumption, right? Because who's to say that Omar didn't fix it and then Clay scanned it, right? We don't know how much time has passed between episodes, but we do have to assume that time has passed because we've had a whole episode in between. You know what I mean? Like, what if Omar fixed it during episode 4 and now here in episode 5, it's fixed and Clay has a scan? Now, my other question is, what if he like got the card and he uploaded the code? You know, what if he like pulled the vial driver in a physical pack and it uploaded the code? Do you think the production of the chaotic cards in the real world matched the level at which, like, is Omar like just created this? Would they have been able to create a physical card that he could upload the code to in that amount of time? That's a question that I am asking, actually. One thing about me is I'm asking that question, and that's a question. So I think there's multiple avenues that Clay could have gotten his vial driver scan, but you know, I have a sneaking suspicion that they do explain it later and that it like what I'm saying right now doesn't matter. But also, who's to say? We're only on episode 5, right? Like, how did Clay get a vial driver? It really throws a wrench in Kaz's plan. So, further analysis, the lesson of this episode. So I think the lesson stems from the Yakis storyline, right? That this is life for Yakis. This is no joke. Even though he's a jokester, a prankster, this is his real life, right? And so Tom learns empathy. Good for him. He needs it. Tom hater. I'm a Tom hater. Whatever. But so this character's name is Thorax. I they said his name twice in the episode and I missed it both times. I had to look it up. And I think if it was Thorax, then I would have picked it up, but I think it's thorax. I think the emphasis is on the second syllable, which in like modern English like naming conventions, normally we put the emphasis on the first episode, like, Jason, Brian, Lucas, Noah, Emily. It's what I mean. Let me think of it. Lily, Anna, you know, like we put the emphasis on the first syllable, but that's not the same in every language. That's not the same in every culture. And so I don't think it's thorax. I think it's thorax, you know? So that's my little tangent on that. But like when thorax goes to set Yakis's house on fire, is that what happens? I don't remember. Um, but I feel like, so this is coming from like an adult perspective, I think. But something about Yakis and Thorax is like they're kind of in this prank war, but Yakis's pranks aren't funny. You know what I mean? Like they're slapstick and they're meant to be silly, but they are physically harmful. And that may be coming from like my adult perspective on pranking, but Yakis's pranks are not funny. They just aren't. Like he's setting a nest of bees on somebody and he's using Venus flytraps for this like creature, and he's hanging people upside down, and he's using spike berries. Like these are things that are physically harmful and dangerous. And that's not what pranks should be. Like pranks should be harmless and silly, and the person who's being pranked should also think it's funny, right? It can be an inconvenience, but it should not be harmful. A prank is supposed to be a joke. It's supposed to be silly, it's supposed to be goofy, lighthearted fun, whatever. You know, it's like pulling a fast one. It's a trick, You're a trickster. But like you're not doing like if you're doing physical harm, you are doing pranking wrong. And I stand by that opinion. I really do. But like the silly goofy attitude, like Yakis has a silly goofy attitude, and just because he has a silly goofy attitude does not make his actions less harmful. Like does not make his does not make them pranks. You know what I mean? Like he's doing dangerous things with a silly goofy attitude, and that does not make his actions pranks. It doesn't make them funny. And I think that contrasts with Thorax he does very similar actions. You know what I mean? He is he is doing natural consequences. He is doing the same actions to Yakis that Yakis is doing to him, right? But because he has a more serious tone, it's understood that that is harmful, that he is like vengeant, you know what I mean? And that because his intentions are bad, it's no longer a prank, it's revenge. Whereas with Yakis, because he's having good intentions, his actions aren't harmful. And I think that's, I don't stand by that message. I think they're both doing things that are like immoral and illegal. The things Yakis are doing, immoral and illegal. I stand by that. Right? And so when Thorax comes at him, that's like a natural consequence for his actions. If you like put somebody in harm's way, they're gonna be mad. You know? Now is Thorax justified in like also causing harm? Probably not. But, you know, maybe we need some restorative justice in this, in Chaotic. But they don't go there, and I'm not going to either. But the plotline, like, it introduces the idea that these creatures, like, actually live in Param and have to deal with their consequences. And so, like, when Yakis says, this isn't fun anymore, that's when Tom, like, his hero complex kicks in, and he's like, yeah, this isn't funny anymore. That's dangerous. Let me step in and be a hero and save Yakis, right? And at least he learned something. Even if he didn't learn how pranks work, he learned empathy. He's like, this is their real life. It's not funny if Yakis's house burns down. It is bad, like, that's bad. He comes to the understanding that like actions have consequences, and for them, this is consequences in the real world, right? And not to say that like the consequences on Tom were not any less consequential, because getting a swarm of bees set on you is not fun. You know what I mean? That's dangerous. And Tom is like, I guess it's funny when it's not on you. And that's him admitting that like he was not having fun with these pranks. Like he thought these pranks were harmful and bad, and he did not like it when it was happening to him. And so therefore he goes around and does the same thing to somebody else in the name of justice. I don't know. Just this whole Yakis prankster plotline, like I didn't like it's just intricate in a way that is interesting. I I don't condone Yakis's actions, and I don't condone Tom's actions, and I don't condone Thorax's actions. But sometimes things happen in life that you don't condone. So at least they learned something. At least they learned something. At least there was a lesson somewhere in there. Whatever. Anyways, moving on to lore and world building. So we do get a little bit more scanner lore in this episode of we learn that the water can mess up a scan, which is, again, very iPhone core, very technology core. Like, I hope Tom has his bag of rice ready, or maybe Sarah is a good friend and she has her bag of rice ready so that they can put their scanners on their little bag of rice to get the moisture out. And, maybe the Staluk scan would come back. They probably won't, but so we learn that, these are not waterproof objects. And we also establish that there is a replay feature in the Battle Drum, which seems very useful, especially for like, fantasy wrestling sports. Replay, I think that's always beneficial for ref calls. And we don't need a ref call in this episode, but like they do use the replay for a narrative purpose of like, the battle just ends and you're like, who won? Right? And then they go and explain who won, and it connects back to the flashback where he ditched the file driver and survived, right? Like a good, useful narrative tool, and also it seems good and useful in the world of Chaotic. Um, we also established Christella as a character, and that she appreciates highly skilled players, and good for her. I think establishing her motivation of like when her and Clay eventually do become the evil duo that they do, like this is a good foundation for her motivation, right? Like she has a love for the game. She loves the game, right? She doesn't care about people, which is very similar to Clay, right? When he tried to murder somebody in the first episode. But whatever, whatever. And so we get her, we get her vibe, we get the banter between her and Peyton, and like, yeah, she shouldn't have touched her. I'm with Christelle on that one. Like, Peyton, what are you doing touching strangers? That's weird. But He describes her that she has a witch vibe, which is like accurate. Like she does have that kind of like dark witchy, mysterious quality to her, but it's not the funniest joke because he's actually doing is using derogatory misogyny against her, but it's a kids show, so it like goes above the kid's head. But like he's actually right, like calling her a witch is actually just using profanity, you know, and like Peyton, I think we can learn from that lesson. I think we don't have to do that, right? Like if he was calling her a witch because she was wearing a hat and holding a broom, sure, that's different, right? But just because she has like a general dark demeanor doesn't mean that we can be mean towards her. And that's what I learned from this episode. And I hope Peyton learns that lesson too. Um, I think he does, but we'll have to keep watching to find out. But that's the C plot. They don't really like resolve that at all. They just kind of, they meet. Onto our fun facts section and other notes. When Krellin says it's a surprise that Kaor wins, that is so funny, actually. This is part of my other notes of I think like that is one so rude and two Krellin what he's like why do you got to do my boy Kaz like that? Like it narratively it reemphasizes that Kaz is an underdog in this show, and like oh it's so surprising that he was won because the only other match that we saw him in is where he lost. So he lost one, he won one. Now he's even. He's tied with Tom, right? But I don't know. Krellin, you better watch yourself. It's like in that first episode when Tom immediately gets to chaotic and that robot is like, you're a newbie and everybody can tell, right? And it's just like, why are you saying that? Like, we're in public actually. Like, can we be nice to each other? And so Krellin is like, surprise, like, it's not sarcastic, but it's like, he's like, wow, Kaz won. And you're like, that's nice, but also so condescending. So, but also maybe that shows the humanity of the Codemasters. Like right now, they're represented as this like amorphous, biblically accurate angel floating technological blob that like really encapsulates the technological motif of the show. But man, he's got a personality too, and don't you forget it. He's in there. One thing I noted is that they switch between the storylines very quickly in this episode, and because there's three of them, they really go back to back to back to back, and like they don't like give this section like they don't give a storyline time to breathe. It's like they really flip back and forth a lot, which just something to point out. And this is my fun fact. I did a little bit of research for you. The character in the prank battle, so his name is Thorax, as we established through my pronunciation debacle earlier this episode. But I saw him and I was like, he comes back. Like, this is a character that we see in the show. And why do I not remember what his card looks like? Because I was crazy and I made PowerPoints of like comedy PowerPoints based on chaotic cards for all my college roommates, which is lore. But because I did that, I like have seen pretty much every character card. I had like, battle gear and locations and music. We didn't get that far. There's only so much that you can make non-chaotic people care. But we had a good time and it was comedy, so like whatever. But that like recall, I was like, I don't know what his card looks like. Okay, so I didn't know what his name was, and I missed it both times they said it in the episode, and so I looked it up. And the fan wiki says that the only time he had a printed card was as a demo card at Comic-Con. And like his card is not released as part of any of the normal releases. It's just like the special edition card. And I thought that was interesting. So, Justice for Thorax, come on, like get your card. So maybe he's a chaotic exclusive. If you want to play as Thorax, you have to scan him in Param. You can't get him in the real world. No, you cannot. That was my fun fact for you, is that Thorax, and this is, I believe, the first character in the series that we see that doesn't have like an official printed card. He's special edition. He's so special. I do not condone his actions. So, just some final thoughts. This is Another episode where I'm like, oh yes, the Yakus episode. Classic chaotic, the Yakus episode. But you tell me that and I don't associate it with the file driver storyline. I just, I think about the Yakus episode and it's Yakus being a prankster. But that reoccurring subplot, like, I don't associate it with that. That's like its own thing in my head. But putting them together makes it fun, it's compelling, it's lighthearted. And I liked this episode as a kid, but then I grew up a little and I thought it was annoying. And I grew up a little bit more, and now like, I think I can pinpoint why I think it's annoying, and it's because of that, like, moral pranks shouldn't be harmful view that I'm holding currently, right? And so now I can watch it and I'm like, this is actually an entertaining piece of media. It wasn't like annoying to me when I was watching it this time. It was because I knew what I was getting into. But that paired with the battle drum, paired with, Christella, I, you know, I stand by this episode as it's entertaining. Like it did the job that I was trying to do. And it did that, and I watched it and I had a good time. I think all that to say, I enjoyed the episode. Would not go to testify for Yakus in court, though. But, Yakus has a card, and Staluk has a card, but Thorax, he's special edition. That's it. That's all I got. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.